All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. We are here with some more NFL preseason DFS picks and lineup advice. DraftKings and FanDuel. We're back once again, right back at it. Late slate last night, early slate this morning, and we're here to break it down for you. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. Thanks for tuning in. This is a live stream. We'll get your questions answered here over the next 20 minutes or so. Talk about the top plays at each position. We got some people in the chat already. Geek Hippie, Casey, Jason, EGS. What's up, y'all? Appreciate you tuning in. So what we're going to do here, I will talk about each position. There are 6 games on this slate. This is the 1 p.m. Eastern slate. We'll talk about position by position, the top plays. Now, the industry and prop markets are pretty much aligned on who the top plays are. So I don't think there will be any surprises in terms of ownership for FanDuel or DraftKings. But that does mean that if you're not using the vast majority of these core plays, that you're probably behind the 8 ball when it comes to today's contest. Now, don't get us wrong. We have plenty of low-owned differentiated plays to win those GPPs like we did last night. I'm sure a lot of you saw the screenshots. A lot of the members had success last night. AJ in the chat, what's up, guys? So, yeah, you see here on screen, 20K win for me last night in the big GPP. Finally got our GPP win for this season after a variety of top 3 and top 5 finishes. Occupy members took down 9 of the top 10 spots in the premier Showdown GPP last night on DraftKings. Showdown notes have been absolutely crushing it. Just shout out to our entire staff, Lucas, Brandon, Chris, Moose, working on these notes religiously. Everyone's done a great job, and we're going to continue to benefit from those here today, tonight, and tomorrow, the final preseason slate of the year. So just real quick, some housekeeping. We're doing this video for this morning slate. The daily plug is up, occupyfantasy.com, for today's main slate. There are 2 games tonight, including a pretty large Showdown slate. We will not have official content for that, whether it's video or article form, but we will post notes in Discord later. So occupyfantasy.com/Discord is where you can get that. Eagles in the chat. What's up, Eagles? Appreciate you stopping through as always. All right, let's talk about today's slate. Again, if you guys have questions, throw in the chat. We'll try to break down as much as we can here in 20 minutes. And we'll start at the quarterback position. And if you watched my videos here the past couple of weeks, or when Chris has been on the channel, if you read anything we've posted in Discord, you read the strategy section of our daily plugs, you know that generally we're not looking to get too crazy at quarterback. Today we have 3 quarterbacks who we can pretty much guarantee a full game of work, which is pretty rare in preseason DFS. Sometimes we'll get a half. We'll be thrilled if we get 3 quarters, or just if Trey Lance and Stetson Bennett are on the slate, we get a full game. For whatever reason, they've been on the same slate the first 2 weeks of the preseason, and then they're on it again here today, and their playing time outlooks have not changed. We are expecting a full half of work for Trey Lance. We're expecting a full game of work. Let's get that corrected. A full game of work for Trey Lance. We're getting a full game of work from Mr. Stetson Bennett, more than likely. Now, they haven't played dress or win yet. They did play their quarterback for 20% of the snaps in preseason week 3 last year. So I think of the 3 guys I'm talking about here, Bennett has the highest chance of being pulled early. I don't think it'll happen, but he could. So that's why he's number 3 in our rankings today. But again, we're getting 3+ quarters of work here from Stetson Bennett and all the interceptions that come along with that. And finally, new character unlocked meme. Easton Stick playing a full game. They've released some of their quarterbacks. Luis Perez, emergency only. Jim Harbaugh wants to see what Easton Stick can do in a full game of work. He's going to play the whole game. So we expect him to be lower owned than both Bennett and Trey Lance. So we're looking for a quarterback who's going to be a pivot off of popular plays and play the same amount of snaps. Easton Stick is your guy. So Trey Lance, Easton Stick, and Stetson Bennett. Really no reason to play anybody else. I understand you guys might want to play Hendon Hooker or Jaron Hall or Green Bay quarterbacks or Pittsburgh. You can do it. There's just no need. Right? Because even in a perfect scenario where one of those guys, score 15, 16 points and a half of work, the most are going to outscore one of these 3 guys by a couple of points, where they do not have 20, 25-point upside like these guys do. So play one of those 3 and move on to the next positions. Best at it investments, new member over here. What's up? Appreciate you. Welcome to the team. We appreciate having you. Matt in the chat. What's up, Matt? Longtime member. Love having you. Random rules in Discord. Can you play 3 wide receivers from the Rams or Green Bay to capture most of their points, or is that limit ceiling too much in your lineup? It's a great question. I think for smaller GPPs, especially for cash games, low risk lineups, you can certainly do that, right? And we'll talk about receivers here in a second. But if you've been around, you've been watching the videos, reading the plugs, playing preseason DFS, you know that the Rams play very few guys at name position. As a result, we get a bunch of guys playing a majority of the game. And again, we're going to have to monitor pregame warmups for the Rams especially. But like if you played, let's assume these guys are in, Whittington, Xavier Smith, Tyler Johnson, there's a good point you're getting 20 points from this group. And 20 points from your receivers in preseason DFS is pretty good. Now, it does limit your upside a bit because ideally we want the spike guy from this group. But it just means if you play this route, you probably have to get different somewhere else. A lower owned player who can really spike, not a safer play. I understand what you're thinking. I think, again, as we play preseason DFS, we know that if you've played any slates, that oftentimes you'll be near the top and you have a 0 in your lineup or a couple zeros or a guy who scores 1 point, 2 points, guy who scores 4 points. And you really wish, damn, I wish I just played the higher floor guys in that position. So I understand the thinking, and you can do it. Just be mindful of who that low owned or upside play is that you mix in around those guys. So I think it's a really good idea. Ozzy in the chat, Josh, what's up? Do you like any of the showdowns tonight? We like every showdown. Let's be real. I do think, though, honestly, the Dallas and Chargers showdown at 4 p.m. is a little tricky because playing time is so known for the quarterbacks that you really need a spike from one of the receivers or running backs to get there, and the playing time is a little disjointed for those guys. So I'm not sure it's the best showdown slate. However, we do really like the 10 p.m. primetime showdown slate tonight. I think it's the Cleveland-Seattle game, so certainly like that. And again, we'll have notes for that in our Discord server. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get some questions in here. If you don't have them already, stop in. So we got 60-some people watching. Say hi for watching. I know a lot of you just lurk, but say hi. What's up? We'll get to the running backs here in a second. I ate some spicy tenders for breakfast/lunch, and the water breaks are even more frequent during this stream. So, all right, let's talk about running backs. And we'll start with, surprise, the Rams. Now, first 2 weeks, Kyren Williams, Blake Corum, and surprisingly, Ronnie Rivers. I guess Rivers is on the team. I don't know. But these 3 guys have not played. They're not going to play today. Boston Scott got banged up a little bit last week. Got held out of practice on Thursday. Zach Evans, as we predicted in our daily plug last week, actually took the lead role in week 2. And they just have 2 guys, basically. Let's talk about this for a second. 2 guys, Boston Scott and Zach Evans. Now, Sean McVay, after Thursday's practice, said we held out Boston Scott in practice because he's going to get a big workload on Saturday. He's been pretty forthcoming in his comments. So we just have to assume at face value that Boston Scott gets a majority of the game here. So what does that mean? Why would he say that? Is Zach Evans not going to play? The Brian Windhorst meme, why would they do that? They also signed Sir Roderick Thompson, a running back, on Thursday. Like, why would they sign him if something is not afoot here? So, potential outcomes. Boston Scott is actually hurt and he doesn't play. Or he does truly get a huge workload because they're resting Zach Evans for whatever reason. And Sir Roderick Thompson is just the backup running back, reserve running back. Or he truly is a reserve, and they're maybe a little concerned about Scott's knee or foot, whatever, leg, whatever the hell he hurt. It didn't sound, it was a contusion. Didn't sound like a big deal. All I will say is, fingers crossed, we get some news from Rams pregame reporters. They have been basically non-existent, doing their best Raiders beats impressions during preseason. We've been monitoring video tweets from the team accounts and the reporters' accounts to see who's on the field playing I Spy. That's how we knew that Sam Wiglusz was not in the lineup last week. Hopefully, we'll get some videos this week. But the Rams running back situation, we're going to have 2 guys, one of which is not on the slate on DraftKings. And so it's going to be Scott or Evans, maybe both. But let's monitor. All right, let's see here. Let's get some of the questions that we'll talk about the next group of running backs that we do indeed like. Swerve says, I'm here and watching. Dad, I missed the water break, bro. You missed like 3 or 4 already. I'll get another one here for you shortly. Josh says Stetson is at 204 yards on prop sites. Yes, he's going to sling it. So Eli says, is stacking the Rams still viable on 6 games? Yeah, it's kind of what I was talking about with Matt a little bit earlier, maybe a few minutes ago. Yes, it's definitely viable. And yes, because they're going to play an entire game, basically. No other team can really say that. Yes, we get an entire game for Easton Stick and Trey Lance, but their pass catchers and their running backs are not going to play a full game. So you can play 4 Rams, maybe 5, and be totally fine. And again, we're going to I'm going to say this repeatedly, especially today. And you guys saw it after last night with the Jalen Wright news, with what was the other news? Oh, the Eric Ezukama news. It's so important in preseason DFS. We talked about the Miami running back situation needing to be monitored, and Ezukama limping out of practice on Wednesday. Ezekam was ruled out. He was 12% owned. Wright was ruled in. We expected it. The industry didn't for whatever reason because they don't do the work. He was ruled in. They were the same ownership, despite one guy playing and being the best running back play on the slate, and the other guy not even being on the field. We're going to get that situation today with the Rams, potentially the Cowboys. So yeah, let's stick around. Let's make sure you're around before lock. As Eagle says, hit that like button for Brian. Yes, thank you. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's the best free way to support, let you know when we go live, upload videos. We'll have one more preseason video next week, next slate tomorrow, obviously. But then regular season starts in a week and a half, and I'm here every Monday and Thursday for Showdown breakdowns. Chris, our NFL manager, is here for main slate breakdowns on Friday. We normally do a live Q&A sometime on Saturday. So subscribing is the best way to get notified when those regular season videos drop as well. Aubrey says, guess what would make sense to stack Bennett with his wide receivers, but Lance will most likely outscore him. Tough decision. Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Like, you think about regular season, you would never do that ever. But with Lance's rushing upside, you can certainly do it. You would never play a quarterback and 3 receivers from another team. But preseason is just a different animal. You can certainly do it today. So it's a weird idea. It's in your mind, but you certainly can do that. All right. We talked about the Rams running backs. Again, if you guys have questions, I'll be here for 15 more minutes. Green Bay running backs. They're dealing with injuries once again. Josh Jacobs is going to rest. A.J. Dillon, stinger, I believe. He's out. Marshawn Lloyd, hamstring. He is still out. Jarvion Howard, injured/released. So they just have the same 3 guys last week. Emmanuel Wilson, Ellis Merriweather, Nate McCrary. Wilson dominated snaps. We played this game with Cincinnati and Chicago on Thursday night, thinking that, maybe some teams switch it up and give different guys looks in depleted backfields in preseason week 3. Didn't happen. So it was a good chance. Emmanuel Wilson leads the team again. He's a great low-risk play at running back. Merriweather and McCrary really far down are great pivots away from Wilson on a slate where we need some differentiation. Finally, Minnesota. We'll talk about this here really quickly. Aaron Jones not going to play. Ty Chandler we expect to rest. DeWayne McBride hurt his knee. They had to sign Mo Ibrahim, former Minnesota Gopher, as an emergency running back. So they're just going to have Nwangwu and Gaskin and potentially Ibrahim. I've seen some other sites project McBride in, and as a whole, push down Minnesota Vikings. We don't think that's the case. Again, other sites don't do the work that we do. Gaskin, we have the top play. We don't think Nwangwu, who is an important special teams piece, plays a lot in this game. Maybe gets a quarter, but Gaskin should get a ton of run here. So we like Gaskin too as well. He'll be really low owned. So we like that. All right, guys, final questions. Let's get them in. 7 more minutes or so. Daily plug is already up, occupyfantasy.com. For those who just tuned in and you've never seen this before, watch I listen to this guy. Yep, won the $20,000 JPP last night. 9 of the top 10 spots in the Showdown were Occupy members. We have the best preseason info and data in the industry. Let's see here. You got our snap dashboard. You can go back and look at previous weeks' snaps as well as preseason week 3 from last year. And our target data and our opportunity data shows how many targets and opportunities each guy has gotten this preseason. That's how we do a lot of the projecting for players' playing time and opportunities in our daily plug. Ty Miami says, would you pair Lance with a pass catcher? If so, who would it be, or run Lance naked? Yeah, so 99% of Lance lineups, I would say, maybe 90, won't have a Cowboys pass catcher. There are a couple we like in our daily plug. They are really high risk. I think the best move is to leave a spot open. We talked about this in the plug. There's a Dallas running back situation that we're really monitoring that we think an historical trend could materialize, but we won't know that until 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m. So what you could do, you could flex a Dallas running back. If that situation doesn't materialize and you've played Trey Lance, you can just stack Trey Lance with a pass catcher. You could play a different Charger. So there are some options. So again, you don't have to, especially in smaller contests, you do not have to stack with Trey Lance. But in larger contests, you want to get different. That is a very easy way to get different and add a correlation to your lineup. So, best added investments. Who do you like for the Detroit versus Pittsburgh showdown? So I'll just give you a rundown of playing time expectations for both teams, and then you can make your own decisions. Pittsburgh is probably going to get a half each for Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. They're good plays. Hendon Hooker is going to probably start and play at least a half. He could play the entire game. There is a small chance he does. He could play 3 quarters, but at least a half for Hendon Hooker. Nate Sudfeld's the other quarterback on the roster. They have Jake Fromm. Dan Campbell said we're not going to play him, so sick paycheck to just show up at practice. Jake Fromm was like just like catching balls and throwing them to the special teams guys. Like an incredible job to get for a couple of weeks. So Jake Fromm's not going to play. So Hendon Hooker's a good play. Pittsburgh's going to have like 5 or 6 running backs. Detroit's going to have 5 or 6 running backs. They're going to rotate the receivers a lot as well. So it's really tough. Kickers and defenses, obviously. So those are the playing time expectations for there. And yeah, as Matt says, amazing that in 2024 there's such a big edge in a DFS sport. That's really where the edges come nowadays, right? So many models out there, so many simulations. When you have information edges, that is always going to be the top priority and the biggest edge you can have. And that's what we have here in preseason DFS. Receivers. We talked about running backs. We talked about quarterbacks. Let's talk about receivers really quickly. Rams guys. And we'll talk about the situations. This is what we have to monitor pregame. Let's get the sip in for Swerve and for my hydration. Jordan Whittington, we expected to maybe get the important starter treatment rest the last week. Didn't happen. It's still on the table. There's a very real chance as a guy who's going to make this roster, who they've been talking up endlessly all offseason, doesn't play today. He's going to be the most popular guy on the slate if he plays, so that could be a big edge. We'll try to decipher as much as we can from videos, but Jordan Whittington, if he plays, best play, but he's very high risk because he could not play. Sam Wiglues, whose name I'm sure I'm not pronouncing correctly, 8 targets, 100 air yards in preseason week 1, got banged up late. All information about Sam Wiglues scrubbed from the internet. Couldn't find a single practice report on him, nothing in warm-ups. We couldn't spot him in warm-ups last week. We removed him from our top plays. He ended up not playing. We did confirm he's in an Instagram story, so he is alive. He made the flight to this game. Is he going to play? Let's hope so, because he's going to be super low owned after not playing last week. No one wants to get burned. So if he plays, probably the best tournament wide receiver for the Rams. We'll do our best to find out if he's going to play or not. And then we have guys like Tyler Johnson, Xavier Smith, and then down the list, Drake Stoops, J.J. Lapp. All these guys are going to play a ton if they're in. So, again, monitor warm-ups. And then we have the same for the Green Bay guys. Very similar slate to last week, where we have a bunch of playing time for high target, high air yard guys in Grant Dubose, Samari Toure, Malik Heath, Bo Melton. I mean, vast majority of your low risk and your small field GPP lineups should come from Green Bay receivers and Rams receivers. Now, all this being said, as I said at the beginning, the industry knows about a lot of these plays, right? The Rams receivers are points of differentiation if we get pregame news. We like Myles Gaskin, point of differentiation. But if you're playing the large field GPP, you can't just jam all these guys in. You have to have some, I'll just pat ourselves on the back here. You got to have a Ramel Keaton or a Tyreek McAllister or two who are 2% owned to put up big scores, right? And so potential spots for that, and we highlight this in the Daily Plug. Buffalo receivers, Minnesota receivers, Philly receivers, Baltimore receivers, Pittsburgh and Detroit receivers, Chargers receivers, stacking with Trey Lance. Lots of 1% owned receivers today as everyone gravitates towards the Rams and Green Bay. So just make sure you're not falling into that trap. Yes, they're great plays. You should play a lot of them. Either play the lower owned Rams receivers or pivot to one of these other teams for at least one spot. And we'll talk about tight ends here as we close out the show. 11:48, 2 or 3 more minutes. Let's get these final questions. Let's see. Let's go through the chat. Justin says, you won that GPP last night. I finished in 6th with my only lineup. That's incredible. Congrats. Let's see where Justin is. Probably in the Showdown. But Dallas running backs, yeah, again, there's a trend. It's in the Daily Plug. I'm not going to give away everything behind the paywall out of a courtesy to all of our paying members. But there is a Dallas running back trend that we really like today. So make sure you go check that out after the show. Aubrey says he wishes he could put Brandon Aubrey in the flex. Yeah, dude, if we could play a kicker in the flex and guarantee some points, that'd be fantastic. Or if we could flex a defense, we would love that as well. But good news, you can play Brandon Aubrey in Showdown. So, Chris says, who would you target, or would you target anyone in Carolina and Buffalo? So Carolina's rested some running backs, but I think they're going to play a lot of guys. So they should have 5 active running backs. They're going to mix in some receivers that they haven't played yet. So they're a little bit tough. Don't like a lot of guys from Carolina. Buffalo, I do like some of their receivers, and our staff likes some of their receivers. Tyrell Shavers, KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella, Xavier Johnson. The best play from Buffalo is their tight end, Zach Davison. He's one of our top low-risk plays. they're extremely thin at tight end. We'll just transition here to talk about tight end. Buffalo, Kincaid and Knox are going to rest. Quentin Morris is hurt. He is out. It leaves just Trey McKinney and Zach Davison. Zach Davison, 60 air yards, was talked up all camp. Hasn't been great in DFS so far, but as we saw with, I think it was Hayden Rucci last night for Miami, just because you don't get targets in the first 2 games does not mean you're not going to get targets in the third game. I think that applies perfectly to Zach Davison here. It's a fantastic play. Do not play double tight end, Chris. Regular season, we talk bad about it, even more so. Because in preseason, you're just looking to get like 1 or 2 points from tight end, unless it's an Evan Ingram situation from last night. Flex a running back or receiver. Don't flex the tight end. Sean says Naylor from Minnesota. I'm not convinced he plays or plays a ton. He's basically locked himself into the wide receiver 3 role, maybe wide receiver 2, depending on Jordan Addison's suspension news. There's a good chance, as they rest guys today, that Naylor doesn't play or doesn't play much. He would get, think Trey Tucker, DJ Turner last night in the Raiders game, guys who are solidified on the team and not going to play. I think Naylor could fit that. So he has a chance to get some ownership and earn a 0. So I wouldn't play Naylor. I'd play one of the other Minnesota wide receivers. Ozzy, and we'll close out the show with this. What are the chances Boston Scott gets a DNP? It's non-zero. Like, it's definitely non-zero. I think the most likely outcome is Boston Scott plays and gets a majority of the workload, like Sean McVay said. But there's a chance, because of the signing of Sir Roderick Thompson, that he doesn't play. Fingers crossed we get news and warm-ups. You guys know, we've been grinding pregame news as hard as possible. Mostly shout out to Lucas and Brandon, our staff members. Give them a shout out either in chat, but definitely shout them out in Discord if you haven't already. Go, if you're a Discord member, in Discord after the show ends or right now, go say, hey, Brandon, Lucas, we appreciate you guys. Those guys have been grinding the pregame news. They're the guys who have been getting us the Jalen Wrights, the Malik Washingtons, the Kyron McGowans, all these other guys. So give them a shout out in Discord. I know they'd appreciate it. And they're going to do the same today for these Rams, these Dallas situations. And when they get those, we'll put those in Discord, and then we'll update the daily plug for you guys with those updates as soon as we get them. And we'll change the rankings, and we'll get great plays at low ownership like we have the first 2.5 weeks of preseason DFS. So that'll do it for this video. If you're not a member already, OccupyFantasy.com is as little as $7 a week. I know there's a lot of Squidward looking out the window memes, all the Occupy members running around having fun winning GPPs. You still got another day and a half to get in on the action. So OccupyFantasy.com, links in the description. Discord, we would love to have you for the updates as well as chatting with other members of the community and staff. Again, all links are in the description. And you know what? You just want the free stuff? I get it, right? You just came here for the picks. You're not going to pay. You don't care about community. That's fine. The least you could do, just drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support us. It's the best way to allow us to give to our staff members to keep doing these videos throughout the preseason and regular season. So that'll do it. I appreciate you all tuning in on this early Saturday morning to watch this video. And let's go crush it today. Let's see some more screenshots. Tweet at us at OccupyFantasy if you win some money today. I know we're going to see some. So good luck to you all. And yeah, I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow. If not, it'll be Chris. But we will have a video tomorrow. So make sure